Mediumship, I think, is often misunderstood. There's often an understanding that mediumship solves the grieving or helps people heal from the grieving, and to some extent that's correct. If we look at it from the person who has recently been bereaved, it will bring an element of comfort to them, because they will have an understanding that in some way they're not completely gone, physically gone, so they miss not being able to hug, not being able to talk to, not being able to see their loved one. And in some ways, I suppose it's a consolation to know that spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, their person is still existing. But it doesn't take away the grieving, because grieving is, in a lot of ways, a very individual process that's important to each person to go through. It is about the person missing their person that's gone to spirit. So it is my process about missing my person. And having a reading, a mediumship reading that's evidential, that proves to me that my person still exists, is not going to take away the fact that I physically miss them. So we're very clear on sharing that mediumship helps reassure us that they are not gone completely, but allows us also to pay attention to the fact that grieving is a natural process within that love. Because grieving in a lot of ways represents how much we've actually loved a person. To grieve for them is to acknowledge how much they meant for us. And grief itself has a whole lot of levels to it. Grief can include frustration, it can include denial, it can include anger, it can include regrets, it can include a wanting or a wishing that we had more time. And in many cases, our person goes to the spirit world before we thought they might, or before we understood. For instance, with children, we often expect that we will go to the spirit world before our children, and we know there's many people that have children within the spirit world. So for those that have been grieving, evidential mediumship will give them that reassurance. For those who are curious and want to know more about the larger questions in life, such as what happens to us when we die? What happens to our soul? What's the difference between our soul and our spirit? Is there a God? Is there a heaven? If there's a heaven, does that mean there's a hell? Those types of questions are the questions somebody asks when they are beginning to look for a greater understanding about life. And for me, that's often a larger reason people come for a reading, is to have an insight into those questions. Whether it's a psychic reading or an evidential reading, having that is often the spark that ignites that spiritual understanding within somebody and will start a spiritual awakening. The spiritual awakening is that first step in somebody understanding that the world that they interact with, for many, this world has never felt like a natural place to be in. So people are looking for ways of understanding why the world is the way it is, why they are the way they are. I've spoken to many who say, I just do not feel part of this world. I cannot relate to how this world is. I never seem to fit in. I don't see the world the way other people see it, and therefore I feel quite alone. And by understanding a spiritual aspect of life can help them relate to themselves a bit better. So mediumship can be the seed that is planted that starts the awakening of the spiritual journey for that person. It's certainly how my journey started. When I started asking those questions and didn't get the answers I thought I would receive, and the answers I was told would show themselves to me, and that's exactly what's happened. Mediumship also allows people to have a connection to when their person goes to the spirit world. They know they're there. They've started their own spiritual awakening process. They're very much of the belief that the spirit world is there and that their person is safe and well. But often somebody comes for a reading for that one opportunity to feel a connection to their person in spirit. And that happens when the medium can give, yes, evidential, factual information, but that emotional evidence that takes them into a memory. It's a beautiful moment if you've ever had a reading and you've remembered a moment, and at that exact same time through your medium you know that your loved one in the spirit world is also having that memory of that moment. There's something incredibly powerful happens. There's something that happens within the soul that's intangible and yet palpable because it's so real. The medium feels it, the person here feels it, the person in the spirit world feels it. It's very, very real. What we don't want to encourage is for people to go for readings often, because it breeds dependency. It can get in the way of the grieving. It can in some way distort that process that we all have to go through. So it's incredibly important that we don't hinge everything, including our own well-being, on whether we get a reading or not. The other aspects of private readings is from the spirit world's perspective. I know if I go to the spirit world tomorrow, I will want to let my loved ones, my friends and family here know I'm okay. But also, I would want to let them know that I see what's happening for them. If they're having challenges, if they're having celebrations, if they have done something in my memory, or something good has come out of my passing, or in some way that they have acknowledged me, I'd really want to let them know that. And so from the spirit world, I know when I've communicated on behalf of people, the joy and the relief from them is something that I feel, that need from the spirit world to be expressed, that need from them to have their voice. I know that the whole perspective of evidential mediumship, regardless of how it expresses itself, is healing, whether it be in this world or whether it be in the spirit world. Mediumship is about healing. It is about offering that connection. If I go to the spirit world tomorrow and I find out it's slightly different to what I believe in, I'm okay with that, because what I'm doing is being in service to something I firmly believe in. I absolutely know that in many ways my soul is healed and touched every communication I do on behalf of the spirit world. So mediumship for me as the medium is profoundly healing. It is so important to my soul, I can't not do it. So aside from everything else I've said, mediumship for me means allowing me to express myself in the way I only know how to, It's the only way I've ever felt fully fulfilled and fully expressed and fully able to be myself.